Welcome to Funnel Reboot, the podcast that shares ideas on how to upgrade your lead generation. Here is your host, Glenn Schmeltzley.
Welcome to Funnel Reboot. We talk a fair bit about lead generation and using digital advertising, and a lot of that attention is given to the largest ad platforms. We've got Google and Facebook, which not only includes Facebook itself, but Instagram and WhatsApp. And these two, according to eMarketer, form a duopoly that accounts for 2/3 of all digital advertising today. If you include Amazon, whose market share is somewhere in the teens and should be in the 20s soon, over 80% of all the money paid to reach buyers is spent on these three platforms. So the question is, does it make sense to take our advertising beyond these three big players to smaller networks who account collectively for only 1 out of every $5 of ad spend? Well, our guest says yes. In fact, she has a lot of experience in advertising on some other networks, and she says these lesser-known social networks pose a great opportunity for B2B advertisers. Now, I'm leaving outside of this LinkedIn and Microsoft advertising. We've got those in other shows, and I'll provide links in the show notes. Twitter is going to be covered in an upcoming episode. But we're going to be talking today on what it takes when you are campaigning on smaller networks with smaller data sets. But before we do that, I want to remind you that this is your show. And this and other episodes aim is only to cover areas of digital marketing and lead generation that you care about. And you can let me know what you've learned or what you're interested in learning by connecting on Twitter or on our Instagram at Funnel Reboot and comment back to me. And you can also use the feedback form on the funnelreboot.com site or leave listener feedback at 613-703-7073. In fact, I might even be able to play it on the show. If you really like what you're hearing and you want to get new episodes as soon as they're out, please hit the subscribe button on the podcast app that you're listening to. Oh, and I'd love it if you left me a review there while you're at it too. So let's hear from our guest, Andrea Cruz. All right. Well, I am really glad to have Andrea with us today. Thanks for joining me, Andrea.
It's my pleasure.
Can you tell listeners who you are and where you work?
Yeah, I am a B2B digital marketing manager. I work in an agency called Co-Marketing located in Boston, Massachusetts. And we focus on B2B clients. So that's our everyday type of issues that we try to deal with.
Fantastic. And that is a large portion of the people who listen to this show. And I think what we wanted to talk about today, Andrea, is we both agree that a lot of attention is given to the larger ad platforms out there. Everybody, can easily find information about, Google and its ad properties, Microsoft, its search and through LinkedIn social properties, Facebook, who of course has their own network proper, as well as places like Instagram that you can place ads. So they get a lot of attention. You and I today are going to focus on the less commonly used ones in B2B advertising. And why don't we start off with one that I know that you've got some experience with, Quora. So can you just start off, tell me a little bit about your use of Quora. Tell me just what is Quora?
Sure. Quora is an interesting platform out there. It's very different than everything else that you have in terms of advertising platforms. It reminds me a lot of Yahoo Answers. And I don't know if that was even used in the United States or in Canada. In Latin America, it was very, very popular. You post a question and people would have the ability to answer. I think the biggest difference between Quora and Yahoo Answers is Quora is heavily moderated. So when you are writing something, you have to be very sure that it goes in line with their editorial guidelines.
Okay. So you can't just stuff it with, all sorts of links offsite and You actually have to answer the question. Is that right?
You actually have to answer the question. You cannot be rude about it. So there is some moderation to it. Because you might say, that sounds like Reddit a little bit, but in Quora, you do need to verify your profile. It has to be associated with a name and last name. So there's more that feeling of being a little bit more authentic, maybe some sort of like LinkedIn, but with moderation.
Well, and LinkedIn did way back when have an answers thing. They plowed it under, but there's it definitely has with that, real person profile, and your picture is there. So I can see how that's helpful for a brand. When it comes to advertising, though, I guess there's a little bit, you have to meet somewhere in the middle, right? The brand and either the in-house marketer or the agency, because it doesn't sound, based on what you described, that you can just stuff ads in.
Correct. You can't just stuff anything in there. I like to use Quora for something anywhere when I'm targeting anyone in the top of or middle of the funnel.
Okay.
The reason is Quora gives you the opportunity to do something very broad and target people based on interest or keywords or things like that. But you can also get very specific to targeting specific questions. So that gives you the ability to insert your brand when people don't know they need it yet.
Okay. So let's say that I've got, let's imagine I've got a large piece of hardware. It's, maybe a server or something. So what you're telling me is that the people who would be going on Quora are looking for information, probably from other people who've bought servers, on what's a good server to buy. And they'll ask that question, and then other people will answer it. One of those people can be the brand or the advertiser. As long as they give helpful information about servers, that answer can be used as an ad. Am I hearing that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And then back to what you said about how that there can be questions that are targeted. So what's happening there is there's probably already an answer, and it's let's imagine it's just by some helpful person out there, not by a brand. What am I able to do in targeting that question?
Well, you could do two things in that case. And Quora has done a good job of creating different ad variations. You could, for example, you have the questions about the servers, and the person who answered the question actually mentions your brand. You can promote that answer, so it shows in a more prominent spot. That's one option. Option two is maybe the answer is an answer that it's fine, but you want to be able to insert your brand in that question, so you can place an ad inside of that question. So everyone who goes into the question will see your ad that says, "We are a great software, a great server," in this case. Figure out why, or whatever your messaging might be. Okay.
All right. So you can create, if I think of the platform itself, the simple idea of a person asks a question and multiple people answer it, it sounds like the ad inventory is like the amount of ad inventory created depends on the number of questions and answers created, right?
Correct. Yes. The vast majority, yes.
Go ahead.
I was going to say the other option you have is while you're browsing the different questions without clicking one of them, you can also see ads in there. Okay. That's when you want to do a targeting that it's more broad, or someone looking for servers. So software kind of like development, you could see ads between the questions before you click into a specific one.
A little bit more like maybe a display ad where you're looking to be discovered.
Yes, and you can do it with images or without.
Okay, let's go back to the situation where I was saying there's, just only so much inventory as there are questions and answers. So I'm hearing that a good strategy, especially if you look as an advertiser and you don't see many answers that relate to your product or service, that instead of just leaving Quora, maybe that's your opportunity to double down on Quora and actually, as the brand or maybe one of the principal people who works the brand, you should actually be answering questions on that. Is that a good tactic?
Yeah, for sure. The other thing you can think of is Quora's answers and questions, they rank organically. So if you see that there is a Quora question ranking organically very well, that's either a good place to place an answer if you don't have the budget. And if you do, you could, as you said, double down and get double visibility within one question.
Right. Okay. So yes, the fact that it's seen outside of Quora, which I think would make people who are used to some of the closed social networks, it would make them feel happy. You are in essence double dipping. You're getting not only what's on the platform, but you could get people who, sat in front of their device and just asked a question of a search engine, and all of a sudden are looking at your brand.
Correct.
Okay, that's pretty good. That's pretty helpful. Do you have any advice for people who are just trying to take answers and then sponsor them like we're used to doing on things like LinkedIn? Should they, do you have any advice on how much of the answer, is a plug for their product versus how much is pure information? How long, how short? Any general guidelines on, what is typically done on Quora?
Yeah. The first thing before you try to create your first ad, it's please read their editorial guidelines. Because if not, you're going to be very frustrated when all your ads get disapproved. You have no idea that they will tell you that you are using the commas or the periods in the wrong places.
Wow.
So they are very strict between what you can or cannot say. Even just things like grammar, they're very particular about it. So before you start writing, read very well what you can and cannot do. Because I've been there. Everything gets disapproved the very first time and you are like, but why?
Wow.
So let me save you some time. Read the editorial guidelines. You will need them. They are very particular about them. That's one thing. The other thing about Quora, if you are familiar with Google Ads or Microsoft Ads, is the account structure is the same. You will have campaigns, you will have ad groups. That's pretty cool. You get impression share, so you know where you can expand a little bit more and get more visibility and things like that. In terms of creative itself, me particular in the B2B world, it's not very fun to show you a picture of a server or a picture of a guy in a computer. So I have not seen a lot of success using imagery in my ads.
Yes.
So that being said, a very short and concise text ad, it's the thing that has worked the best for me.
Right. And every platform has like a carousel ad or an extra wide image ad. But I suppose if we put ourselves in the shoes of the person who's using Quora, who just wants to get in and find an answer, we have to have that answer first. Anything else is kind of window dressing, right?
Yeah, I had a lot of success with a client that was promoting a free trial of their product. They have a free version.
Yes.
And once the user sign up for that free version, then we would start advertising, hey, we also have a paid version with more features and etc. So Quora was very successful at people trying to just figure out where they could start using a solution like the one our client used. And getting this free option was very appealing to Quora users.
Right. Okay. And because they were, I guess, looking at answers around the same category of products, it felt very in keeping with the other things. It didn't stick out, hey, use this paid. No, it sounds like it slips in very well. Yes,
it has to be helpful because people don't know who you are. They are just, like you said, I think the way you said it before, it's really good. They are just trying to get an answer and then leave.
Right. I think this line keeps getting not blurred, but how answers look. I mean, when I go on Quora, what I notice, and if, as a user, it's fine, but as an advertiser, it started to make me shake my head. Answers can get upvoted, and sponsored answers can get upvoted. So you have this interesting thing where you want the ad to be written so well that people look at it and vote on it the same way that they would an organic answer, because that's going to give you social proof. So that's how far we are over into providing help, as opposed to if we think of, even old style Google ads, when it was 25 characters and you basically had to, issue a command to somebody, go here, do this, we sell that. Quora sounds like it's way at the other end.
Well, you know what? I kind of appreciate the fact that Quora ads don't look like an ad. It looks like another answer.
Yep.
I like that particularly a lot, because there's a lot of people that have ad blindness. Now they will see it says sponsor, it says ad, and it's like skip next.
Right.
It happens. A lot of people have that. It's not a secret. So the fact that the ad blends very well with the other organic answers give you that boost of getting additional eyeballs to it.
Right. And that may be why it's worth sweating through those editorial guidelines.
Oh, yeah. You are not going to show up if you don't read them. Trust me.
That's right. You have to. There's no choice.
There's no choice.
Let's flip over to targeting. So you've just glanced at a few ways that could be targeted. You talked about targeting a question. Can you target people by interest, like by what their profile is?
You can target people by interest based on what they have searched for. Unfortunately, you don't have B2B detailed demographic. For example, you cannot target people based on the industry they work in, right, or their job title. I think that would make the platform be a real competition to someone like LinkedIn.
Yes.
And being super cheap, because Quora is definitely on the cheaper side. One question I get often is, well, how do I know if my audience is on Quora? The easiest way to figure that out is, well, there are two ways.
Go ahead.
Option one, you can install the Quora pixel on your website. If you feel comfortable about the quality of your traffic, just add the pixel to your website and figure out how many people get cookie. That's an easy way to know if your audience is there. The other option, or option number two, is you can upload email list. Upload those in and see what's the match rate you get. If you only have business emails, you might struggle with it a little bit. It's more common to see Gmail, Yahoo, whatever you use.
Sure. And that's true on LinkedIn. And, so, perhaps that email is a better way to go. But I definitely agree with you that having a way to put the pixel on your site and show, oh yeah, there's, the people over there are a fair amount of them are the people that have been on our site. And that means there's more like them, which brings me to lookalike audiences. A lot of platforms have them. Do you consider Quora's lookalike setup to be any good?
I am not a big fan of lookalikes in general. I'm going to go and throw that in there. I like lookalikes in things like I use them on Google Ads when I have a really big pool of converted people. Yeah. Okay, let's use a lookalike to try to bring new top of the funnel people into the mix. But
so in this case, it sounds like it might be retargeting then that you're using the cookied audience for. I would not try to do lookalikes on Quora. Okay. All right. But I can see how retargeting would be helpful, because maybe all they got in their first, maybe they were on your website for 15 seconds and they just kind of understood, okay, so you're in this category, but you need them to understand your product well. So you would do some retargeting and get them to an answer that goes into about your product. And now, those two signals together is much more powerful than just having, one time where one person, the chance of that person becoming a lead is probably slim, but two together, now we're talking.
Yeah, even if you think about the traffic that it's going to your website, if you have a lot of FAQ type pages that start with what is, how do I, that it's very top of the funnel. And if you can gather them all together and have a pool, remarketing pool that it's big enough to be able to be remarketed on Quora, you can move them one step down the funnel very easily.
Oh man, that's an amazing little tip you gave there. Okay, so I'm just going to repeat that. So let's say I've got, I'm on Google Analytics and I create an audience, and my criteria is they must have been in my FAQ pages. Now that audience, I'm sending that over to Quora saying, if you see these people, send them to the answers just like that. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Let's send them to the specific ads that are targeting a specific interest, or if you have enough volume, I doubt you will, unless you add a lot of questions, you can send them to very specific questions.
Nice. Or the other way, if you just wanted to make sure that your questions were seen, you could have the person who is the spokesman or spokeswoman for your brand take that information that's, buried in those deep FAQ pages and surface it on Quora. And, retargeting would allow that person, like you have a much higher sense that that audience is now seeing the answers. Maybe they don't bother digging down into your website to see them.
Yeah. This might be a little bit another tactic you could use if your remarketing audience is big enough on Quora, is you can grab your top 10 Google Ads keywords for your middle of the funnel and copy and paste them into Quora and call it a day. Anyone who searches for an answer that has that question, that keyword, will see your ad as well. So that could be another strategy instead of trying to find very specific questions, if that makes sense. Right.
And well, it might be good to get started, because if you have that, the data from your top 10 keywords, then that gets a fair bit of traffic. And, keywords are a fairly broad way of getting an audience. Maybe over time you'll refine it and get more specific, but that would be probably a good way to just get started and see what kind of budget is being spent.
Yeah, well, you're going to pay per click, and we're talking about clicks that are less than $2-3.
Wow.
American dollars. When you think about paying 15 in Google Ads and making the user do the same thing, you might want to go with the cheaper option if you have the volume, or if you have some extra budget to test.
Yes.
You could also do that.
So when it comes to the metrics, you were mentioning, what you're paying for it. So you've got CPC. Are there any other metrics? It's not happening on my website. So if I'm used to Google Ads, I may feel like I'm giving up some information on, them converting. Can you tell me what kind of metrics Quora's dashboard is going to show me that make me feel comfortable with spending money?
Yeah, you will see the traditional metrics you get in every platform. That includes clicks, impressions, CTR, conversions. They added not too long ago, I think it was at the beginning of this year, impression share. So all those regular metrics are in there, the basic ones. You can segment by device. But the other one that they added recently is you can now set up custom conversions and be able to set up the time frame for the conversions to happen.
That's big.
So that's where they are.
That would be, I'm putting a specific event on my website, or I'm putting a specific event inside of the platform and saying, I want to optimize around that objective.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Can it be in both places, or does it have to be only inside of Quora?
Say that again.
Can I set a conversion on my website? Like, how friendly are they with me putting a link and then, paying for the ad with the objective of that person leaving Quora and coming to my website.
So that's fine with them. The only thing is it doesn't really optimize towards an objective. Okay. So it's not like Facebook that you say, I want to optimize based on conversions or traffic or engagement. It's not, that objective based type of campaign is not there.
Got it. Okay. But I can at least see it and report to my higher ups. Here's what we got for our money.
Correct.
Cool. So if just kind of finishing up on Quora, if we think of it as a medium, would you say that, I should kind of think of it as being something that I'm going to quickly turn on and scoop up clicks, or should I kind of consider it more like a slow or more longer term channel that I'm going to use in my overall funnel?
There is a learning curve. If we don't say that, it's a lie. With these platforms, you learn something new every day. The key is the first campaign you want to create, you don't want to be too specific and you don't want to go too large either.
Okay.
Because either ends of the spectrum are going to give you trouble. So try to find a point where you feel comfortable when you can get some money going. I don't recommend testing the platform unless you have at least $40 to $50 per day to spend, just for you to get some actual insights in, is the user liking what I'm showing them? Do I actually get a chance to actually get a conversion?
Right.
So I wouldn't do it unless you have at least that amount of money per day.
Yeah, makes perfect sense. And it does sound it doesn't sound like it would be the first network in for someone who hasn't done any paid search or paid social. I think what I'm say is get some other of the major platforms where the traffic is there, and then you can understand what your instruments are telling you, and then get to Quora when you say, well, how do I get a little bit more squeeze out of what I'm doing? I want a few more percent, but I know where to go look.
Yeah, or you have a campaign in either Google or Microsoft or LinkedIn or whatever you are, that you have tried everything you could think of and it's still not working. So you have that leftover budget. Yes. And it's like, well, let me try something new. Quora could be that place that gives you that extra little bit of edge you need for that extra percent you are looking to get in your monthly report at the end of the month.
I love it. All right. So we want to leave a little bit of time to kind of explore some of those other platforms that would be used in the exact same way. So are there any others that, you want to mention? Just go ahead, and we don't have to spend much time on them, but where else would you go if you had that, like you say, 10% of budget that you're really looking to get a little bit more out of your overall funnel with?
Well, I am a big fan of using Reddit ads for anything that requires user feedback. Okay. If you have a new platform and you just want people to try it, it's something that people it's a B2B software, that's fine, or not. But you want to get that impression of the user, and you have a free demo, a free beta, something that you want people to taste. I think Reddit ads, it's a great place to do that. Target some specific subreddits that are related to what you are offering. Don't be salesy. Don't try to make them purchase a $1,000 software, because it's not going to happen.
Yes.
It's more about getting feedback. I like Reddit ads a lot for that.
I can say that about Reddit. You will get what people really think because, like you said, they're anonymous, but it also encourages people to show what they know and show what they feel. So people will, I find it interesting because it doesn't matter how introverted a person is in real life. Once they're comfortable with using Reddit, they can be as loud and boisterous as, a person who's like, 6.5 feet tall and, does football for a living, right? It just, Reddit allows everybody to say what's on their mind.
Yeah, but the other thing besides feedback is when you have something that it's really good, Reddit users are very loyal. So they would appreciate those interactions they have with your brand as well.
So you're saying they'll come to your defense if somebody else it's crap. I can see that. Now, would you suggest in Reddit that you don't just put the ads in and walk away, that you would want to check regularly to see what is being said, maybe respond to some of that feedback?
Yeah, for sure. And again, Reddit, it's not about being salesy. If you tell them that you are the best in anything, they will tell you you're wrong.
Yeah, you'll get shot down. Yes.
Yes. So you have to be careful because, as you said, there's the anonymity issue or sense in the Reddit space where you have to be careful in terms of being actually helpful and say, hey, I need help. What do you think? Reddit is great for them.
That's good. So if I've got a product which actually is good, I think that it could find random people who like it. A self-moderated place like Reddit is good. Like you said, though, if I'm being salesy and I'm trying to kind of do a PR job on it, Reddit is absolutely the wrong place to go.
Yeah, you will fail. You will definitely fail.
Any other platforms that you like to look at, like you said, when the main platforms are just not, getting you results that you hope?
Pinterest has been an interesting place for very niche companies.
Yes.
If you are, for example, in the education space, Pinterest is fantastic because people are always looking for ways to improve a classroom setting, ways to make the classroom better. So you have the audience in there. It's obvious. While you cannot target, I only want to target teachers or professors or daycare center owners, it's obvious they are there.
Yes.
So Pinterest is about getting creative and really realizing how you can get to them, what topics is your audience actually interested in, and then going after them. A lot of people think it's only for e-commerce. But again, the education example is a real case example. We had a client that most of their organic social media traffic came from Pinterest. So it was a no-brainer to try to tap into it.
Right. And see if you could increase that traffic because it was already there. Yes.
It was already there. I was converting organically without doing a lot on it.
Yeah. And so long as you're not, and this is something we run into on the paid search side with branded campaigns, you do have to be careful that you're not buying a click that would have come organically anyway. But if you are able to allow that organic traffic, but increase the number of people that are encouraged to go, maybe it was more the people who knew the exact right words to land on a company's Pinterest page organically. If you can kind of expand that territory with a wider number of key terms by paid, you're not interfering or cannibalizing that organic. You're actually, you're augmenting it, right?
Yep. You're augmenting it. Correct.
Cool. So you've given a ton of helpful suggestions and strategies, Andrea, and it's clear that you know this. You're like a maven of how these networks work. Can you tell me how you got here? Tell me what the steps were, how the path looked that got you to be such an expert on these kind of paid platforms.
Honestly, I tell this to any new co-marketing employee. It's all about continuous learning. When back in the day when I started in co-marketing, Quora didn't even exist. So it's all about really being aware about what options are out there, and always think about is there a way I could position my brand or my client in front of the user in a way that it makes sense to them through this platform? I've started to hear already people saying, oh, should B2B brands be on TikTok? And I'm like, well, my clients, I don't think so, but maybe yours. Yeah. It's really about just learning. Dedicate a little bit of your time every day, every week at the pace it works for you to try to figure out, is there something new in the market? And how is it built or how is it used? And you learn a lot when you create a campaign on Quora or Reddit or anywhere and it fails. You learn a lot from it, and you might take that insight and take it back to Google Ads and say, hey, I learned that I could do this and this and this and this way, and it generated results, not the ones I wanted, but it generated something else. Yes. Let me use that now on Google to try to improve what I was running before. It's about trying and not being scared of trying something new. Just always remember, don't go too big and don't go too small. Try to find that middle ground where you can actually get some information. If you get 10 clicks, you learn nothing. And if you get 1 million, you probably went too big too quickly.
Right. So take me back to a time before you learned all of this stuff. The digital marketing field, these particular paid platforms, like you say, they didn't even exist when you were, coming up. Tell me the origin of how you got, interested in the first place in this, and, where'd you grow up, and what does that look like?
Well, I think it's part, Glenn. I've always been curious about learning and learning something new. Even when I went to college, I studied business administration because it was a middle point between math and actually literature. It was a place where I could read and talk to people and interact, but I also had some numbers that also make me happy. So that intersection has always been key to any job I've ever had. It has to have both. And digital marketing was that. I have all the data in the world, and I have wonderful clients that I can talk with them every day about what we need to do and what we need to make different to improve.
Yes.
And I had my first marketing manager, his name is Jeremy Cruz. He was fantastic at telling me, you have to be willing to learn what's new on the platforms, or you won't be able to be on top of your game. So he was very key in me being interested even more into learning what's out there. Showing me, well, there were not podcasts at that time that didn't exist, but key publications, key Twitter handles, being active on PPC chat on Twitter. That gave me the opportunity to learn from other people who had more experience than me at that time.
You've hit on one thing that is key, and it's interesting that it was all after university for you, that the platforms, you had to learn what they were, get the basics down, but then, as Jeremy said, you had to keep up with the new features because these platforms themselves are evolving rapidly, right? So this is coming back to that continuous learning that you said, where you may say to yourself, okay, I understand what this platform does today. Well, you can't just rest. If you do that, then 2 years from now, your knowledge of the platform will have deteriorated because now you only know, in 2 years, you'll only know maybe a third of what it can do because they've added 2/3 of new features, right?
Yeah. And now that legislation is being added on top of platforms, it's even more important knowing how each platform is behaving differently. It's a whole different discussion. It's a whole different podcast if we want to go there.
Wow. Yeah. Well, I'm just appreciative of the fact that you do share this learning that, you have. And it's helpful because when people first look from the outside at any of these platforms, they can be daunting. But, I suppose what you would have to say to those people is there was a time that you didn't know the platform either. And, you just started and you jumped in and like you said, you tried to find that middle amount of data that you could get some learning out of. And then you just kept going, right? You look for the patterns, you try to repeat them in other accounts. Any other general advice on how to use any of these platforms before we let you go?
I'm going to say just be excited about learning something new. Ultimately, it's going to make you a more holistic marketer if you can understand how people behave differently on different platforms. It's going to make you really think about your buyer's journey in a more complete way. So be excited about that. That's music to my ears every time I think about it.
And I mean, isn't that one of the biggest things of all digital compared to people who had to do our jobs back in the days of billboard or TV, right? They had, I mean, maybe they had numbers, but those numbers were guesses. And we actually now can think of the person at the keyboard or the phone who's at the other end of what we're doing and get feedback, right? And that's just what a gift.
That's right.
Cool. Andrea, I want to say thank you so much. If people wanted to reach out to you, you mentioned you're on Twitter. Where can people get a hold of you? Yes.
I think if you want to get a quick hold of me, Twitter is the best place. You can check my Twitter at Andrea Cruz 92. And I'm looking forward to seeing you there.
That's great. And I'll make sure that we include that and the other things that you mentioned in the show notes. And I hope that if you've listened all the way to the end of the episode, that you've enjoyed what Andrea had to share today. And if you really like what you've heard, give us some feedback. We would love to have either a review, or if you go to funnelreboot.com, you can leave us listener feedback by voicemail. You can reach out to me on Twitter as well at HeyGlennS or at Funnel Reboot. So thank you once again for joining us today, and take care.
Thanks for listening. Follow the show on Twitter at Funnel Reboot. If you like what you have heard today, please consider leaving a review wherever you get your podcasts.